And the US is stepping up its campaign against ISIS, sending a specialised force to Iraq. Defense Secretary Ashton Carton announced it during testimony in the US Congress. The force will conduct raids, free hostages and capture ISIS leaders. It will also be in a position to stage operations within Syria.
To build on that momentum, we're sending, on President Obama's orders and the chairman's and my advice, Special Operations Forces personnel to Syria to support the fight against ISIL.
Chief US Security Correspondent Jim Scuitto joins us now from CNN Washington. Jim, about a month ago, the White House announced it would be deploying less than 50 special forces to Syria. Now additional forces will be sent to Iraq. Just how many are we talking about?
We're talking about a similar number, probably a few dozen in this expeditionary force that Secretary Carter was describing. You have to tack onto that support forces because invariably you'll need search and rescue, other teams there to protect that force. Probably raises the number to about 200. You know, not significant numbers when you're talking about 50 on one side of the border, 200 on the other side, but it is significant in a change in role because when you talk about those sorts of missions, going after high-value targets, freeing hostages, these are some of the most dangerous missions. And keep in mind, you've had the White House, the president insist for months that U.S. troops would not have a combat role in Iraq and Syria. But in fact, when you describe those roles, as the secretary was doing so today, those are combat roles. Those are tip-of-the-spear operations. And the fact is they're dangerous. So U.S. troops will be getting into much closer to the front lines and in much greater danger.
Absolutely. These are essentially boots on the ground. So do you think this is a case of mission creep?
There will certainly be legislators here, the administration's critics, who will use the term mission creep. When you look at the numbers, whether you use the term or not, the mission has definitely grown. When U.S. military action against ISIS began little more than a year ago, there were 300-some troops sent to Iraq. This was largely to bolster security at U.S. embassies in Baghdad, the consulate in Erbil. Slowly, though, more troops have been going in, and their role has gone outside of those major population centers. They're now in Anbar province. They're training Iraqi forces closer to the front lines. Now you have special operations forces on the other side of the border in Syria, and now you have this expeditionary force that will be doing forward operations. And I'll tell you, Linda, the fact is we've already seen some of these operations. There was a risky but successful operation in Syria to get a senior ISIS leader, Abu Sayyaf, a number of months ago. Just last month, I covered this. It was a U.S. operation joint with Kurdish commandos, but a U.S. Delta Force operator was killed in that. This was to rescue some ISIS-held operatives. The Kurdish commandos came under fire. The Delta Force guy went in to help defend them. He was killed. I mean, that's a firefight. That's combat. And if this force is going to be doing more of that, sadly, we're going to be seeing more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Small numbers, but I mean, in that case, largely effective. Jim Scuitto, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.